Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm here with Chris, big Bruins fan. I've known this guy since like back in the day. So we're going to preview a little bit of the Bruins and Capitals matchup here. Probably like one of the most, I'd say, hyped up matchups coming in. I think a lot of people are going to be paying attention to this one. 2 versus 3 seed. We saw it in 2012, a huge matchup there. And we're seeing it again in 2021. So Chris, I guess just right off the bat, I know you're a big Bruins guy. So are you confident coming to the series? What do you just expect for the casual fans out there? Like, what do you think we'll see in this series?
For me personally, and I think a lot of Bruins fans, over the years, the Bruins have actually struggled big time against the Capitals. But of all seasons, this season, when they play them in the playoffs, I think this is the best team out of the 3 other teams in the Eastern playoff bracket that they should actually be happy to play. When you look at the Penguins and the Islanders, the Bruins had some tough games against them, whereas the Capitals, although some of the games were close, I think the Bruins were actually able to score a lot of goals and get to Vanacek in the net, which goaltending is a big key part in this series, which we'll get into here in a second.
For this Bruins team, I mean, they've looked a lot better since the deadline. I think that kind of attributes to the addition of Taylor Hall. And of course, I mean, it's not talked about enough, but I think Bruins fans realize how big Mike Riley's been just in terms of like kind of solidifying like a top 4 that was like lacking big time. And while Mike Riley's not this big name, I mean, it's not the best to have like Jeremy Lauzon or whoever in that top 4. But I guess right now you can talk about the bigger names, but maybe outside of the bigger names, like what are your kind of important aspects to this series for the Bruins?
For me, and you could maybe consider this a bigger aspect, but I think something that the Bruins have been looking for years now is the second line center, David Krejci, getting him some help, which they did get some help in Taylor Hall. And obviously Taylor Hall is a big part, but I think David Krejci, although he's getting older, his value to the Bruins is still really important, both on the power play and even 5v5. So getting him that winger in Taylor Hall was huge. And of course, we've seen what Taylor Hall has been able to do now with the Bruins. Another thing with the Bruins is their team defense. I think when you look at individuals, it might not look like on paper. I mean, you have McAvoy and Carlo, but on paper, those aren't defensemen you expect to really be giving up one of the least amount of shots against in the league, in the entire NHL.
Yeah.
But they do that night in, night out. And that's why their penalty kill is also so good.
It's actually crazy because I think there was a lot of criticism on Craig Smith to start the year, but he's been really turning it on. Obviously, the guy got a hat trick, right? And I've watched a lot of Bruins games over the last few weeks, and Craig Smith has been really good. And I think you look at the second line, like I think that's why I'm giving a lot of like respect to the Bruins, because the way that they've been able to construct a second line finally is like a huge deal. I mean, if you talk to Bruins fans, I think if you probably talk to any Bruins fan 2 years ago, they wouldn't think that the defense is a question mark over the second line. Like the second line right now is completely solidified. You have Taylor Hall who's playing really well, like not far off a point per game. And then Krejci, who's obviously having a great season. And then Craig Smith has really turned it on in the second half. So you look at the third line, if Coyle and whoever else can step up. Obviously, they've been kind of running like Corrali and Wagner on the third line at times, and then DeBrusk was playing on the fourth line. But they have options. I think that's the biggest thing for the Bruins up front. And then, I mean, you have like 3 or 4 options with goaltending, but Rask is probably taking the reins. So I guess versus the Capitals, do you see like a matchup problem for the Bruins in any sense against the Caps?
For me, the one concern is going to be probably individual mistakes. And when I say that, I just mean kind of staying out of the penalty box. We know how good the Washington Capitals power play has been for years now, of course, with Ovechkin, Backstrom. I still think Backstrom is a player who doesn't get enough respect in this league. So underrated, such a good player, point per game. So I think staying out of trouble, although the Bruins penalty kill is really good, I think when you're coming up against a Washington power play that's also just as good, you need to be careful, because that can change a series. Power play momentum, that's huge.
And I guess if we're looking at the series, I mean, you as a fan or just you as kind of seeing both these teams this year, how do you see it playing out? I don't know if you want to give an exact prediction, but what's your kind of mindset for how this series could go down?
I can see the series shaking down almost exactly how the regular season series went forward. I think there might be a couple blowouts here and there, like we saw in the regular season, but I think a lot of the games are going to be close. I think we probably see overtime once or twice, and I think we're going the distance. I think 6 games minimum. I think this is going 7, and You could flip a coin, but
Yeah.
from what I've seen and based on the past few weeks, I think the Bruins have enough momentum and they now have the depth to get over the line in this one.
What's the difference maker? Is it potentially goaltending? Is it Rask over whoever starts between Vanacek and Samsonov? Or do you think it's just like the overall roster, forward group, defense? Like, what's the difference maker for the Bruins?
For the Bruins, I think goaltending's a big one. I think Tuukka Rask, if he can play at a level which he's played in the playoffs in the past, they'll be fine. When you look at the Capitals, you have an interesting situation because you have Vanacek, who's played, I think, about 36 games this season. And you have Samsonov, who's played 19. I think he has COVID right now, though. So him coming in might be an issue. Vanacek playing in his first playoffs might be an issue. So at the end of the day, I think the goaltending might be the difference maker. But at the same time, I think if you're looking at a series and you come out of it and you're blaming your goaltending, I think the team as a whole, both teams as a whole, if they play well enough, can win the series.
Hey everyone, I'm now joined by Jeremiah Maxwell, big Capitals fan, and we're going to kind of talk about the Caps versus Bruins series here. A big one, 2 versus 3 seed in the East Division. This one is probably the one I'm looking at just to be the most competitive. I don't think we've seen this matchup since, correct me if I'm wrong, Jeremiah, 2012. And I'm just looking at the Caps Bruins here as like 2 complete teams. They have a couple question marks on both sides. We'll kind of get into it. But Jeremiah, what are your initial thoughts as a Caps fan here? What are your kind of like thoughts as confidence-wise and just what are you looking for in the series?
I would have said a year ago, my confidence is all-time high with the Caps and Bruins because we just had owned them really since Joel Ward's overtime win in 2012 in Game 7 after Boston was the defending Stanley Cup champions. I have very low confidence in the Caps beating the Bruins. I think this is probably the worst matchup for them, including Pittsburgh. I think that this is a 6-game series for the Bruins. I think they're going to win and advance and most likely play Pittsburgh. We'll see. They cannot be defending that Bergeron, Marchand, Pasternak line, which for my money is the best line in hockey. They're so simpatico. It's going to be a real tough matchup. That's going to be the line. And then now with Boston adding Taylor Hall, and then they've just got the depth they need. They need more. Boston needed more consistent scoring, right? They weren't getting a lot from DeBrusk, and they let Bjork go for Hall. Probably going to go down as the steal of the century if Boston does something great in the playoffs. Just like the 2018 run, Evgeny Kuznetsov needs to show up. He's a non-factor this year. He's been 9 goals now. He's had COVID suspension. Fair or unfair. The NHL had its league thing. I feel like they were a little heavy-handed with the Caps as far as how they punished them, and they didn't punish other teams. But this recent one, there's not been any controversy around it, but he has to show up. I'd like to see Lars Eller kind of step his game up to,
another guy that was huge in 2018.
Yeah. And he's been good for the Caps. There's a theme here with the Caps is like the 2 guys I named. They need to be way better on faceoffs. Michael Kempny, he's supposed to be back, and he is so integral to skate with John Carlson because you have that left, right. And they just, that was, one of the most not talked about pairings for that Stanley Cup run for the Caps. And it's not like they went through an easy road. And then the goaltending, I think is, you didn't ask for any specifics there. I think, I've actually been really impressed with both Vanacek and Samsonov. I think they're going to play great, but Rask, as a Maple Leafs fan, Rask can steal series. And in my opinion, he's been the reason Boston has gone to 2 cup finals since 11 after Tim Thomas, because he's just, when he's on, it's like the line from Miracle when they talk about Jim Craig, it's like, hey, you ever seen him with his game? Like it's just, I don't think there's a better goaltender when he's on his game. You could make the argument Vasilevsky, but because
when Rask is on, when he's at obviously there's the question marks of like when he's not on, but when he's on, he's one of the best in the world.
And if a team is well scouted and well coached and knows how to exploit them, and Boston is one of those teams that can do that, I believe the Caps are. I believe there are a lot of teams that do those things well. So we'll see. I think, they've got a good shake. They've got a fair shake as any other team in the league right now, right? That's in the playoffs. So I'm hopefully optimistic, but I told you I think Bruins in 6. So we'll see what happens.
Okay, so what should fans, maybe casual fans that don't know too much about these two teams, what should they expect specifically out of this series? Like, big goals, big hits, like what is coming out of this Boston-Washington series, just an overall perspective?
Well, they're going to see a team in Boston that's super skilled, that moves the puck, that just seem like they know where everybody is on the ice. And so that's very much like soccer, like Barca, they're going to be, and that's going to be impressive. And it's going to be a physical, emotional series. And I think if you haven't watched hockey ever in the playoffs, every series gets that way, right? I mean, there's always some physicality. And this year it's heightened because Boston is not a Metro Division team. Normally they're an Atlantic Division team. They're normally playing your Maple Leafs in the playoffs, right? Yeah. So you're probably happy as hell that they get the Capitals first. Yeah. For the casual fan, the Capitals are a physical forechecking team. They're going to hit a lot, and there's skill on the Caps, but it's the Caps window is now. Like their team is the oldest in the league, and then throw in 44-year-old Zdeno Chara. I think it's going to be interesting to see him play his former team that he played with for a very, very long time in the Boston Bruins, that he was the captain and won a cup in 2011. So I think it will be a little bit more emotional than people will think, but I think it's going to be really good hockey because I think they're both really well coached, and both teams really, like I said, I think the Bruins are a little bit of a bad matchup for the Caps. They're faster and younger, and they win faceoffs. So puck possession is always a big thing. If you're a casual fan, you don't realize the teams that control the puck and play usually end up winning games a lot more than not. So we'll see.
Hey everyone, I'm joined by John Duncan from Off the Wall Hockey. What a legend. Here to talk about the Bruins Caps matchup in the first round. So, I mean, I'm looking at this one, guys. I think this is like one of the biggest matchups, second versus third seed in the East Division. So, John, we know you're a big Bruins guy. I guess kind of go over some of the factors on how the Bruins could potentially beat the Caps, or what you expect from this series in general, and I guess just how you see it going down.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. This is going to be such a great series. This was one of those series that I was hoping we were going to get to see, and I'm super pumped that we are. Caps and Bruins played some awesome games against each other this season. Both teams were able to beat each other multiple times, and it was a hard-fought game every time out. And I think we're going to see that just ramped up to playoff intensity for these games. I see this one probably going 7, at least 6, probably 7. I think either team can win it. It's pretty much a coin flip as far as who's going to take it. Boston's been playing really, really well since the trade deadline, and that is something that, before the trade deadline, they kind of limped into that Taylor Hall trade, where they were not playing well. I was getting really down on the team, but the way that they've played since then has me right up there thinking like, hey, this team could actually do something in the postseason. And I 100% think that this is going to be one of those just beat and bang up and down the ice, just dogfight of a series, and I think it could go either way. But Boston's got a good shot, Capitals have a good shot. It might come down to 1 goal. This series might come down to 1 goal in game 7, and it would not surprise me.
I guess out of the big names, I mean, it's the most obvious to look at the top line of past Bergeron and Marchand, and it's obvious to look at McAvoy, and it's obvious to look at Tuukka Rask. But I guess outside of that, what are some of your X factors for this series?
Yeah, I think Nick Ritchie for Boston is a guy who obviously had a pretty brutal time with the Bruins during 2020 and didn't really ever get adjusted to playing well. But he's had a great season this year. He's got 15 goals, net front guy on the power play. He's brought obviously a big body, physical presence to the lineup. In a series that's going to be as physical as I expect this Bruins Cap series to be, Nick Ritchie's going to have to play a big part in that, and he's going to have to contribute offensively like he has for most of the regular season. That's a guy for the Bruins that I am really looking to have an impact on this series. That's not your Pastrnak and Marchands, but somebody lower in the lineup who I think could play a big role in how this series goes. Ritchie's a guy to watch for me.
based on the Carlo hit and based on what we've kind of seen with Tom Wilson recently, like I feel like it's got to be like guaranteed that Richie and Wilson fight, right? Like 6'4" versus 6'4", 6'4" versus 6'3". Like, do you see like a fight like that happening, or like obviously the physicality I think for this series is expected, but do you see your favorite style of hockey going down in this matchup?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be a very, very physical series. This will not be a series that people who don't like physical hockey are going to want to watch, but I don't know if Richie and Wilson will end up going. I think something's going to happen during the series to lead to that. I don't think they're just going to come out in game one and just start throwing. But I think as things happen during the series, or if Wilson does anything, lays another hit like that or anything like that, then Richie would definitely be a guy involved. I think there are some other guys on the Bruins that would not be afraid to get involved. You could see Trent Frederick dressed at some point during this series on the fourth line. I think it's going to build to be a very physical matchup. And, how far it goes, I think is largely going to depend on, things that happen on the ice, whether they're clean hits or whether things start to get real nasty.
Is it 6 or 7 for sure, as you said? And do you think that we're going to get a bunch of overtimes? Do you think the Bruins have a real shot at like winning the series and going far?
Yeah, I think this series is a complete toss up. I think it could go either way. Both of these teams have been very evenly matched all year long. I think their play styles kind of collide to where they can play the style of game that they want against each other, because they're both physical teams. They both have bigger lineups, and they are not afraid to play that way. I definitely think it's going 6 or 7. I would be shocked if this was not a long series. And I think
we want a long series for this. Right?
Oh yeah. Very much want a long series. And I wouldn't be shocked at all if it goes 7. I think you probably will get 1 or 2 overtime games in there. They've played mostly close games this season against each other.
Well, a couple blowouts, but
those were
outliers. It was the 8-1 and the 6-3 or something, or
there was a couple of blowout games, and then other than that, most of the matchups have been close. Early in the year, I think they played 2 or 3 straight, all went to overtime. So I'm thinking it's going to be really, really close, tight series. I don't even know how to pick a winner yet. I haven't done my predictions yet. This is going to be one that I literally pick probably on the spot when I'm doing the video, because I have no idea which way this one's going to go.
Well, I'll say this on behalf of both of us. They're just predictions, folks. So don't take it too like we know how YouTube comments can get.
Oh, insert the angry comments. How did you not pick my team?
Thank you so much for coming on. Great chat. Bruins versus Capitals. We'll see what happens, but make sure you go subscribe to Off the Wall.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, man. Awesome time.